Hello everyone, a very good morning and welcome to you all, distinguished delegates, presenters and participants from SAARC member states and region around the world. My name is Tula Paudel and I am working as a research fellow energy trade at SAARC Energy Center, Islamabad. I shall be moderating for today's session. On behalf of Director, SAARC Energy Center, I am thankful to all of you for joining us in this webinar, Regional Experience in the Energy Sector, Restructuring and Reforms. This is organized by SAARC Energy Center and is being broadcasted from its office in Islamabad, and it is our fifth webinar out of 11 SAARC webinar series of the year 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, across the world, energy systems are shifting from centralized state-led models to more competitive, efficient, and sustainable frameworks. Reforms such as unbundling, tariff restructuring, private sector participation, and renewable energy integration are creating opportunities for better access, greater efficiency, and climate-friendly growth. At the same time, we must recognize the challenges such as regulatory complexities, institutional capacity gap, and affordability concerns. These require balanced solutions that combine innovation with strong governance and inclusive policy. In South Asia, reform efforts vary from competitive energy markets in some countries to more state-driven models in others, and this diversity offers valuable lesson. And today's discussion will help us learn about success and challenges, mainly of two countries, Nepal and Pakistan. Dear participants, to lead the discussion today, we have a panel of esteemed experts. We have Engineer Arun Kumar Upadhyay, former Secretary, Government of Nepal, and Mr. Hussain Jaigam Albi, former Director General, National Electric Power Regulatory Authority, NEPRA, Pakistan, and their wealth of knowledge and years of invaluable experience in the energy and power sector is well recognized, and their insight and in-depth understanding of both policy, regulatory, and practical approaches will greatly enrich today's discussion. Dear participant, today our director is not here. He has some engagement, but he has sent us the wishes for the fruitful discussion and comfortable learning. Moving forward, we'll be listening to presentation of around 1.5 hours and then followed by question answer session. So you have the opportunity to ask question to speaker by typing your question in the chat box that you can see in attendees pane of the main window of MS Teams software. You may send your question at any time during presentation. Then I will be asking question on your behalf. So with this, I would like to introduce the first speaker of the day, Engineer Arun Kumar Upadhyay. Arun Kumar Upadhyay, known as Ujjalo Nepal Abhiyanta and the architect of Nepal power sector reform, is a pivotal figure in Nepal's energy sector with an MSc honor in electrical network and system from the Georgian Technical University and training from ITC, Netherlands. He has significantly shaped Nepal's infrastructure. He is founder chairman of Nepalese Association of Private Public Partnership Professional and a freelance consultant arbitrator. He held roles like vice chairman of the Policy and Planning Commission, Far Western Province, and secretary in President Office, multiple ministries, including energy and irrigation. He chaired the Nepal Electricity Authority for 2.5 years and led key energy organization. And also he served governing board member in SAARC Energy Center, and he is also recipient of Super Bowl Janasabha Shri Award 2018. Engineer Upadhyay's over 200 recognition and underscore his visionary leadership in driving Nepal's sustainable development of energy sector. So participants, today we have two very well seasoned expert. They have led their power sector and energy sector transformation process in their country. So with this, I would like to invite Arun Kumar, sorry, Anup Kumar sir, please. You may proceed.
Thank you, Tulaji. Hussain Sahib and distinguished friends who are participating in this webinar. So, okay. Good. So, Namaste, Puju Jangpola, Assalamu alaikum, Subha Udesanak, and very good morning. It is indeed an honor and privilege to stand before this distinguished gathering of experts who have dedicated their lives to shaping the energy future of our region. At the utmost, allow me to express my sincere gratitude to the SAARC Energy Center for bringing us together in the spirit of cooperation, dialogue, and shared purpose. For me personally, this moment carries a special sense of connectivity, continuity, and reflection. My association with this regional energy cooperation dates back nearly 3 decades. I still vividly remember my first engagement with the SAARC secretariats and later on SAARC Energy Center in 2006, when our region was just beginning to think more concrete about framework for power cooperation. Today, I would also like to remember contribution of late Hilal Raza and his team. Over the year, I have had the privilege of contributing in various capacities to the shaping of arrangements and building the institutions and creation of trust among the neighbors. And in this journey, I have witnessed firsthand how electricity has moved from being seen as a diplomatic utility, seen as a domestic utility issues to becoming a central pillar of diplomacy. In this spirit, I wish to share with you Nepal's journey in the power sector and lessons we have learned and the pathways we can chart together for more connected and resilient regional energy future. So, in this presentation, I will try to cover these outlines. If we look at the big picture, our energy use is split into two very different worlds. First, there is the traditional world. The single biggest chunk by far is a traditional biomass. That is a fancy term of firewood, animal dung, and agriculture waste. This alone makes up upon 2/3 of our all energy we used. It is mostly used in rural areas for cooking and heating. Then there is the modern world. This is everything else. About 12% of our petroleum, that's all the diesel, petrol, and cooking gas we import from other countries. It's what fuel our transportation, cooking, and heating. Another 5% is coal, which is used by industries like cement factories and brick kilns. And finally, all about 4% of our total energy comes directly from electricity. Now, that 4% of electricity might sound really small, but here is the cool part. Almost 100% of that electricity is generated from clean, renewable hydropower from our rivers. We also starting to add a little solar into the mix. So what is the main takeaway? Even though we are producing a lot of clean energy, we still very heavily on burning food and importing expensive fossil fuels. The big goal for the future is to get people to switch from firewood and petrol over to clean, homegrown electricity for cooking, for driving, and for industry. That is the path to more independent and sustainable energy future for Nepal. If we look back at the Nepal's electricity sector, the transformation has been extraordinary. In 1992, before reform began, our total installed capacity was just about 300 megawatts. That was enough only for limited urban centers, with shortage everywhere else. Today, in 2025, our installed capacity has reached nearly 3,900 megawatts. That is more than 12 times growth in a single generation. Our national grid now carries more than 15,000 gigawatt hours of electricity each year. At peak demand, we are serving almost 2,900 megawatts. Inside the country, consumption has risen to over 11,000 gigawatt hours annually, which means each Nepali now uses around 465 kilowatts hours per year. But the real story is Nepal has moved from being electricity deficient to becoming an electricity exporter. With India, we now export about 2,380 gigawatt hours while importing around 1,700 gigawatt hours when needed. Our export capacity to India has already reached 1,130 megawatts, and just recently we began exporting to Bangladesh as well, 40 megawatt already following across border. These figures are not just statistics, they are proof of reform, investment, and cooperation. They show how far Nepal has become from time of scarcity to time of opportunity. And this is only the beginning. With the strong planning, faster cross-border connections, and continued reform, Nepal can truly position itself as a regional hub of clean, renewable electricity in the region. So let's go back to the very beginning. The story of hydropower in Nepal actually starts in 1911 when the very first hydropower plant was built in Farping. It was a small one and just about 500 kilowatts. A little later, in 1936, another plant was added at Sundarijal, producing about 640 kilowatts. But here is the thing. The early power plants were not really meant for general public. Most of the electricity went to the palaces, a few government offices, and some part of the Kathmandu city. Back then, everything was under the Public Work Department of His Majesty's Government of Nepal, and there was not a dedicated electricity company or institutions like we have today. As Nepal's demand for electricity slowly started to grow, different institutions began popping up, but the problem was they were not really coordinated with each other. First came the Electricity Department back in 1960. It was set up under the Ministry of Water Resources and mainly looked after generation and distribution in the bigger towns. Then, just a couple of years later, in 1962, the Nepal Electricity Corporation was created. This was a semi-autonomous body, and its main focus was on supplying electricity around Kathmandu and a few other towns. By 1966, another body appeared, the Small Hydropower Development Board. Its job was to promote and build small hydropower plants, usually less than 100 megawatt, mostly in the rural hills. Along all of this, there were also rural electrification efforts happening. Many of these were supported by local governments and foreign donor countries like India, China, the USSR, and also projects led by the United Mission to Nepal. In fact, United Mission to Nepal played a really big role. They were pioneer of community-based hydropower, and they went on to establish companies which later became a very important players in the sector. Now, allow me to briefly take you back to the early days challenges of our power sector. At that time, the ecosystem was marked by a fragmentation. Generation, transmission, and distribution were divided among different institutions: the Electricity Department, the Electricity Corporation, and the Small Hydropower Development Board, which worked in own silo with little coordination. Because of this, unified planning was almost impossible, and investment lacked strategy. The financial foundation was equally weak. Tariffs were not based on actual costs, but controlled politically, which left utilities unable to recover expenses or reinvest in the system. Electrification, too, was uneven. It was largely concentrated in urban centers, with a rural area dependent on small, scattered projects. This left much of the country in the dark. On top of that, there were serious technical challenges. Power cuts were frequent, maintenance was poor, and the system losses were high. The absence of the skilled manpower made these problems even worse. In short, the sector struggled under the weight of institutional fragmentation, financial stresses, and technical weaknesses. And this is important, this very shortcoming pushed our donors to rethink. They were planning also for invest a hydropower project of 400 megawatt size. They become the starting point of our reform, and that is unbundling of all institutions. Sorry, that is a bundling of all institutions. Ladies and gentlemen, a major turning point of Nepal's electricity history came in August 1985. Through the Nepal Electricity Act of 1984, all these fragmented institutions were merged into a single authority, that is Nepal Electricity Authority. The goal was clear: to create one unified institutions responsible for integrated development of generation, transmission, and distribution across the country. For the first time, Nepal had a single agency that could plan, coordinate, and deliver electricity as a national system rather than as isolated projects. This consolidation was more than just instrumental restructuring. It marked the beginning of modern era in Nepal's power sector and era of unified planning, larger projects, and the foundation for expanding electricity access across the nation. When we talk about the foundation of Nepal's hydropower development, we do not forget the remarkable role of United Mission to Nepal. Starting in 1960s, United Mission to Nepal did more than just build project. It created an entire ecosystem of skills, institutions, and companies that still shape our sector today. In 1963, they established Putwal Technical Institute. This became a training ground, producing skilled technicians and engineers who would go on to serve the country's energy sector for decades. Just a few years later, in 1996, Putwal Power Company was founded, followed by Nepal Hydro and Electric, which itself grew out of Putwal Electromechanical Workshop in the late 1960s and early 1970s. From these roots also emerged Hydro Consult Engineering, or originally the engineering wing of Putwal Power Company, and later Hydro Lab, which provided essential testing and research facilities. But UMN's contribution was not just institutional. In 1978, they developed the 1 megawatt Tenau hydropower plant, one of the earliest community scale projects of its kind. In short, United Mission to Nepal planted the seed of Nepal's hydropower ecosystem, building not only power plants but also the technical manpowers, the engineering culture, and companies that continue to drive over our hydropower journey even today. Let me take you back again to the early 1990s. At that time, electricity in Nepal was still a scarce commodity. The Nepal Electricity Authority, a 100% government-owned undertaking, though with financial autonomy, operated as a single vertically integrated monopoly. It generated, transmitted, and distributed all the power in the country. Yet the reach of electricity was very limited. Electrification covered barely 15% of households. In many rural communities, people had never even seen a light bulb. The dream of harnessing Nepal's river for electricity was alive, but it was still only a dream. Then came 1992, a landmark year. The government enacted Hydropower Development Policy and Electricity Act 1992. For the very first time, Nepal opened its door to independent hydropower producer. For this, government has established an institution. At that time, it was called Electricity Development Center. Later on, it is converted to Department of Electricity Development. And it was the body created for promotion of hydropower development in Nepal. And at the same time, we have established Electricity Tariff Fixation Commission. The department also worked as a secretariat for that commission? Well, I still feel proud that I was among the very first engineers recruited in that department right after finishing my college. I also clearly remember my first day in the office. We were given a pile of laws and regulations: Electricity Act, Land Acquisition Act, Water Resources Act, and many more. At that moment, we looked at each other, a bit shocked, and thought to ourselves, are we engineer or have we suddenly become lawyer? Anyway, another milestone arrives with the establishment of Electricity Tariff Fixation Commission. It was about governance. Until then, tariff decisions were highly political, often arbitrary, and seldom cost reflective. With this commission, those decisions were placed in the hand of a semi-independent body. The commission introduced greater transparency, applied rule-based method, sought cost-reflective tariff. Of course, it was not perfect, but it gave much needed confidence to the investors, and at the same time, it offered consumers sense of fairness. These are the seeds of reform, the early policy shift that created the foundation on which Nepal power sector transformation has been built. But let me also be frank, seeds take time to grow. In the year that followed, demand rose far faster than supply. Investment lagged, projects delayed, and institutions struggled. And by the mid 2000, the country was plunged into one of the darkest chapters of our energy history, the era of daily load shedding. By 2008, Nepal was in the depth of most painful energy crisis. We were facing up to 16 hours of load shedding every single day. Imagine it, students trying to study by candle lights, hospitals depending on costly diesel generators, industries shutting down their operation, small businesses forced to close. Electricity, which should have been a driver of growth, had become the greatest bottleneck to development. But sometimes crisis forces transformations. Out of that darkness came determination. The government introduced the National Energy Crisis Prevention and Electricity Development Decade Plan in 2017. At the same time, a number of practical interventions began to take the shape. We tightened control on theft, reducing losses of the system. Households and businesses shifted from incandescent lamp to CFL, saving precious megawatts. And most importantly, Nepal Electricity Authority worked to bring predictability and discipline to the supply system. And we imported more electricity from India to fill the immediate gap. Within just a few short years, the long, painful blackouts come to an end. Nepal moved from a chronic deficit to a seasonal surplus of electricity. This turnaround is remembered as one of the most significant milestones in the Nepal's energy journey. A reminder that even the deepest crisis can become the foundation for lasting reform. Now, let me share inside story because reforms are not just about laws and plan, they are about choices. Around this time, I was task manager of power sector reform study project. It was a first of this kind. There was a lot of talks about unbundling of NEA. In many countries, reform meant breaking up the utilities, one company for generation, one company for transmission, and one company for distribution. Donor encouraged us to follow the same model. Some even pushed hard for the forced unbundling of NEA. But we believed, and I still believe, that Nepal needed its own model, a model that fits our context, respected our institutions, and avoided unnecessary conflict. So, what did we do? We began with internal unbundling. Within NEA, we created a functional separation. On paper and in practice, generation was managed separately, transmission separately, distribution separately. We tested how it worked and learned by doing. Then came the second phase. We created a new specialized company for transmission like Rashtriya Prasaran Grid Company Limited. Its responsibility was to look after all transmission line of 220 kV and above. At that time, we knew that the system had to grow. So separate licenses were given out for building transmission lines. But in the back of our mind, the plan was clear. Sooner or later, all lines of 220 kV and above would come under the grid company. The lines up to 132 kV, on the other hand, were to remain with the distribution company, and there was a reason for this. We had already planned for more than 10 industrial areas across the country, and these would need reliable 132 kV network to support their development and operation. This was unbundling, yes, but done in a Nepali way. It was a gradual and deliberate and also we call organic. And here I must pause to say I had the privilege of being the architect of this model. At this time, not everyone agreed, but the donor community resisted. They thought our approach was too cautious, but we were convinced that this was the right way because it avoided conflict with NEA's employees, it avoided confrontation with the politicians, and it ensured the continuity. And in practice, it worked. The grid company was established, NEA continued its role, and reform advanced without disruption, without social cost, without shocks and jerks. This, I believe, is one of the Nepal's unique contribution to the story of power sector reform. We found a path that worked for us. Another area of reform was strengthening the regulatory framework. We know that to truly modernize our power sector, we needed a strong and independent regulator. That's why in 2018, Nepal created the Electricity Regulatory Commission. This was the natural evolution of the old Tariff Fixation Commission, but the Electricity Regulatory Commission is much more powerful. It has full authority over tariffs, performance standards, and consumer protection. This shift is very important. For investors, it means greater predictability and fairness. Tariffs are not decided in back rooms, but through the transparent regulatory process. For consumers, it means stronger safeguard for service quality and accountability. Of course, the Electricity Regulatory Commission is still young, but it represents maturing of our sector, moving decisively from potential political decisions to regulatory ones, and from ad hoc practices to rule-based governance. And that is exactly what we give both investor and consumers the confidence to trust the system. Another frontier of reform has been cross-border trade. In 2014, Nepal and India signed the Power Trade Agreement. This agreement allows both governments to trade electricity, to invest across border, and to access each other's market. Under this framework, several Nepali hydropower projects have now been approved to export directly into India's power exchange. With Bangladesh, we have broken new ground. Through tripartite arrangement with India, Nepal has begun exporting electricity to Bangladesh. The first transaction, about 40 megawatts, may sound modest, but it is historic. For the first time, Nepali electricity is flowing not only to India, but beyond India into Bangladesh. And to make all this possible, we are building transmission highway. The Dalkebar-Muzaffarpur 400 kV transmission line is already in operation. Butwal-Gorakhpur 400 kV line is advancing as a joint venture between Nepal Electricity Authority and India's Power Grid Corporation. New lines such as Dododara-Bareilly and Inarwa-Purnia 400 kV lines are under preparation. These lines are not just steel towers and cable. They are bridges of cooperation. They connect Nepal's river to South Asia's economy. Let us take stock of what these reforms have delivered. Nepal has moved from chronic deficit to seasonal surplus in less than a decade. We have mobilized billions of dollars in private investment with more than 80% hydropower projects by number developed by private sector. We have created specialized institutions like Electricity Regulatory Commission, Power Grid Company, to make the system more professional and resilient. We have begun to export electricity, turning Nepal from an energy poor to energy rich country. These are real, measurable, and meaningful achievements. But let us be honest, challenges remain and they are significant. Transmission bottlenecks are the biggest barrier today. We are already spilling power in the many in the rainy season, because we cannot evacuate it, our supply mix is dominated by run-of-the-river type hydropower projects. This creates surplus in monsoon and shortage in dry months. We must diversify into storage projects, solar, batteries, and pumped storage. Tariff policy is politically sensitive. We must strike a balance between affordability for consumer and sustainability for utilities and investors. The financial health of NEA remains fragile. Power purchase agreement must be sustainable over the long term. And finally, regional politics and regulatory harmonization will continue to shape how far and how fast Nepal can integrate into South Asia's power market. So where do we go from here? I see 4 clear priorities. First, strengthen our transmission backbone, complete the Butwal-Gorakhpur line, push forward with the north-south 400 kV corridor within Nepal. Without this, generation growth will only create waste. Investment in generation will be stopped. Second, diversify our supply mix. Invest in hydro storage project, explore pump storage, build solar parks, and begin integrating battery storage. Nepal's hydropower is clean and abundant, but it must be complemented by flexibility. Third, deepen regulation and governance. Empower the Electricity Regulatory Commission with resources and independence. Develop modern grid codes and market rules. Create scope for open access and competition. Fourth, expand regional trade. Increase export to Bangladesh from 40 megawatts to hundreds. Broaden access to Indian power market and position Nepal as a clean energy hub for South Asia, exporting not just electricity, but stability, reliability, and green power. Let me share with you my personal reflection on Nepal's power sector reform. When we began this reform in 1992, in the years followed, there was skepticism. Many people said Nepal could not reform its power sector. Some said cross-border trade would never materialize. And yet, here we stand today. We have proven that reform is possible if it is designed carefully, if it respects context, and if it is carried forward with persistence. I take particular pride in the unbundling model we developed. We did not follow the textbook prescribed by our donor agencies. We did not bow to the pressure. We created a Nepali solution for Nepali problem. Even when the donor community doubted it, we held our ground, and in the end, it worked without disruption, without conflict, without shock and jerk. So the story of power sector reform is not over. Reform is a journey, not an event. From 1992 acts to Electricity Tariff Fixation Commission to promulgation of establishment of Regulatory Commission to grid company to the power trade agreement with India, tripartite agreement between Bangladesh, India and Nepal, and now to trade with Bangladesh. Each step builds on the last. Our task is to take the next step boldly to ensure that electricity is not just surplus but a driver of industrial growth, to ensure that clean energy from Nepal does not stop at our border but lights home and factories across South Asia. If we succeed, Nepal will not only keep its own light on, it will shine a light for the region. Our share of regional energy pie may be moderate, but it will be meaningful because what we bring is not just electricity, it is clean, renewable hydropower. It is system stability for our neighbors. It is opportunity for our industries, and it is pride for our people. Distinguished colleagues, let me take you on quick journey across the South Asia to see how different countries in our region have tried to reform their power sector. Each country has taken a path shaped by its own resources, challenges, and policies. There are successes, there are setbacks, and there are lessons we can all share. Let me begin with India. India went for big reform. The Electricity Act of 2003 was the turning point. It opened competitions, created regulators, and launched power exchange. Today, India trades electricity on day-ahead and real-time market and integrates renewable energy through auction. The result, a dynamic market and fast renewable growth. But even with all this, distribution companies, the DISCOMs, remain financially weak. The lesson, laws and markets help, but unless distribution is fixed, the system remains under stress. Now, Bangladesh. Bangladesh put access first. The government brought in dependent power producers and pushed rural electrification. In just a few decades, the country went from power shortage to almost universal access. That is a huge achievement, but the downside is dependency on imported fuel and subsidies, which are creating financial pressure. So Bangladesh shows us that access can be expanded quickly with private investment and like political will, but long-term sustainability requires tariff reform and fuel security. Bhutan's story is different. Bhutan built its economy on hydropower exports, mainly to India. Projects are state-led, financed and brought by India. Hydropower now provides most of the Bhutan's revenue. But I think our Bhutanese friend will correct me. But delays, cost corruption, and dependence on single buyer make Bhutan vulnerable. At this time, it is even had to import electricity. The lesson is clear: relying on one resources and one partner creates risks. So diversification and a better project management are essential. And then Nepal. Nepal is moving steadily toward regional trade. Private developers are active. A major regulator has been established. and transmission lines with India are coming up. In 2025, Nepal even exported electricity to Bangladesh through India, a historic milestone. But Nepal's export still depends heavily on India's rules and corridors. The lesson for us is that building hydropower is not enough. We need strong institutions, transparent trading rules, and cross-border trusts. Now let's look at the others of our region. Pakistan has gone through repeated power crises. The government unbundled its power sector in 1990s and brought in private producers under attractive policies. But over time, high capacity payment, circular debt, and poor distribution performance created chronic financial stress. Pakistan reminds us that bringing in private sector investment alone is not enough. Without strong governance and payment discipline, reforms cannot deliver sustainable results. Sri Lanka Sri Lanka focused on reliability and access. It achieved near universal electrification and invested heavily in grid expansion. However, the country relies heavily on imported oil and coal, which exposed it to financial shocks. During the recent economic crisis, reform and regulation and independent tariff setting exist, but implementation has been politically difficult. The lesson here is access and reliability are important, but energy security and financial independence are equally vital. In Maldives, the geography itself is the challenge, which Iceland has to generate its own electricity, mostly from diesel. That makes cost very high. Recently, Maldives has started shifting to solar and hybrid system with donor support. This shows us that even a small and scattered system can embrace renewables, but reform must focus on decentralizations and affordability. Finally, Afghanistan, the power sector there is fragile, shaped by conflict and dependence on import. Most electricity most electricity come from neighboring countries. Institutional reforms has been limited. Though donors have supported distribution and rural electrification, the lesson here is that without political stability and domestic generation capacity, reforms remain incomplete. So, what do we learn when we put all these stories together? First, strong laws and independent regulators must come first. Second, distribution is weakest link in every country. If it fails, the sector cannot be sustainable. Third, bilateral and trilateral cooperation work better than waiting for large regional agreements. Fourth, dependence on a single fuel, on a single market, or a single partner creates risk. Transmission and trading rules must go hand in hand to unlock cross-border trade. And what does this mean for Nepal and for the region as a whole? For Nepal, the priority is clear: finish the cross-border transmission lines, harmonize trading rules with India and Bangladesh, and build a professional trading company. For the wider SAARC region, the way forward is to connect our market step by step, starting bilaterally, moving to trilaterals, and one day perhaps a true regional power pool. In conclusion, colleagues, the story of South Asia is not one of the single model. India shows the power of markets. Bangladesh shows the drive for access. Bhutan and Nepal shows the promise and pitfalls of hydropower. Pakistan shows the danger and financial mismanagement. Sri Lanka shows the risk of fuel dependence. Maldives shows the challenge of a small system, and Afghanistan shows how fragile institutions can hold back progress. If we combine these lessons wisely, South Asia can turn its diversity into strength and make regional energy cooperation a cornerstone of our shared prosperity. With this, I will conclude my presentation and thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you, sir, for your insightful presentation. You have taken us through a comprehensive journey from historical evolution of the sector to key figure and facts that you provided with good analytical perspective. Also, you highlighted that the reform is a structural change rather than just a policy statement, and how choice for reform shape the trajectory for energy sector. And you also very nicely highlighted that how Nepal adapted its own model on unbundling process of NEA. Similarly, you covered the establishment of institutions like Grid and Regulatory Commission that were introduced as a part of unbundling. And similarly, you covered the trading opportunities with India and Bangladesh. You also nicely presented the challenges that Nepal is facing, and also you provided roadmap that the stage-wise, that the 4 stage roadmap. Then you also gave your personal reflection, and you covered briefly the regional experience. So it's a very really commendable, sir. Thank you. Dear participant, you have, if you have joined late, Anup Kumar Upadhyaya sir is a former secretary of government of Nepal, and he has witnessed and involved in so many reform process. And our question answer session will be held combinedly at the end after the finish of the next presentation. So I would like to request Anup sir to please stay online. And now we move to the second presentation. And I also request to participate to please share your question in chat box. Now moving forward, we have another expert. He's going to be speaking on about the Pakistan perspective. And let me give his introduction. Mr. Hussain Jaigam Albi is an expert in power and energy sector, having specialized skill and knowledge through a career of over 40 years with consultants, electric utility, and government functionaries. Mr. Albi holds a master's in electrical engineering from City University of New York, USA, and a bachelor in electrical engineering from University of Engineering and Technology, Lahore. He also holds an MBA from University of Punjab. He served National Electric Power Regulatory Authority, NEPRA, Pakistan as Senior Advisor, Director General and Director, and has led many departments over there like technical monitoring and Enforcement, Privatization, Standard and Licensing Department, and he is involved in development of regulatory regime under NEPA Acts 1997 and 2018 for the encouragement of renewable energy, competitive market, and sector policies. Before joining NEPRA, Mr. Alvi served National Engineering Service of Pakistan, NESPAC, one of the leading consultants in Pakistan. He also worked with Consolidated Edison Company of New York, USA. So, Alvi sir, please, you may go with your presentation.
Thank you. Are you
No. Not
able
sir,
to see?
not visible, sir.
Not visible. Okay. I'm back. Let me. Now,
Nice baby coming.
is
Yes,
is it
sir.
visible?
Now, yes, perfectly. But you can
Okay.
just zoom in, sir. You can go for the full slide mode.
Yes. Is it okay now?
Yes, sir. Okay.
All right. So thank you very much, SAARC Energy Center. I would like to make my presentation just about Pakistan energy sector. And before I commence, I will say hello to everyone, good morning, and namaste, and assalamu alaikum. Like Mr. Anoop said, I have two kind of points to make before I begin. First of all, I would like to remember Mr. Hilal Raza. Very rightly, Mr. Noob said he was the main, one of the major persons or personalities in Pakistan to interact with the regional centers and all the international community. And then there is a contrasting point which I would like to make before I begin. Mr. Anoop said that they had their own homegrown solution, whereas in Pakistan, it was totally mostly dependent upon the international donor agencies, contributions and concepts and the models. So that's the premise on which I would begin. First of all, let me take you through some of the initial statistics and outlook about the energy. Energy basically is the domain of Pakistan Planning Commission, and who kind of performs an integrated energy planning for Pakistan. It develops energy forecasts, energy models, and it based on the past historical models, and it also prepares sector-wise forecasts. And as you can see there, the energy of Pakistan, uh, mainly there are four components like oil, natural gas, LPG, and electricity. These are the major consumption for energies. And the sectors we have domestic, commercial, industrial, and transport sectors. Uh, Basically, and as I'll show you in the next slides, that our how our energy was used in the past and how it kind of is forecasted to grow. There are two regulatory agencies, mostly mainly dealing with the oil and gas, that is Oil and Gas Regulatory Authority. It was constituted in 2002, and its main role is to grant licenses, and it sets prices, notifies petroleum prices on bi-weekly basis. After 15 days, it notifies these prices. Power sector, on the other hand, is regulated by National Electric Power Regulatory Authority, which was established in 1997. Then we have the last bullet on this slide. You can see that currently, and as also pointed out by Mr. Anoop, that we are in crisis. Currently, our circular debt stands at 4.7 trillion rupees, which is an alarming kind of indicator for the whole sector. Next slide, you can see that the energy contributions, energy consumptions in the past, and the energy forecast from year 2021 to 30. I have kind of drew these slides from the published source, that is the Ministry of Planning and Development for Special Initiatives. Otherwise, there are a number of studies which also provide you with these informations, but I just wanted to restrict myself with the published data. So as you can see, the domestic sector, oil, natural gas, LPG, coal, and electricity, these were the historical consumption areas, consumption commodities on which energy was used by the sectors. And as far as forecast goes, you can see that oil has declined in the domestic sector, and it is more in the electricity and natural gas and LPG. Commercial side, similar trends you may notice, and on LPG, natural gas, and electricity, these kind of show the same pattern for increase. Industrial sector, you can see the consumption patterns, historical consumption pattern versus the forecasted consumption patterns. And you can see the same pattern as in case of historical patterns. And electricity, coal, natural gas, these are being used in the industrial sector. Coal is slightly on the increase now. And however, the rest of the patterns are similar. Then agriculture and transport sector. You can see that historically agriculture sector was using electricity, but it was also using a lot of oil. But as you can see now, it is forecasted that the oil will decline and most of that will be replaced by electricity. So agriculture will have a lot of dependence or consumption through electricity, and it also calls for different sources to be inducted in that sector, maybe through solar or maybe through wind. But currently, its more dependence on electricity is a kind of thought process or thought points, thinking points for the planners. Transportation sector, you can see, or it's mostly it is using oil. Or lately in 2030, you can see that electricity is also becoming part of this transport sector. So mostly it will be through EV vehicles, electrical vehicles, and otherwise most of this is coming from oil and natural gas transport sector, because LNG and oil is being used. But it is hoped that with this new policies and new incentives for this electricity for use in the vehicles, EV use will be increasing. This is a kind of small overview of the energy sector. In the power generation sectors, you can see that similar pattern as in the past is being followed, but coal is being increased. I mean, the use of coal is increasing over the years, starting with the 21 to till 2030. So this is and at the same time, the consumption of oil has reduced, and it will continue to reduce, but still some of the plants will be using furnace oil. Next, since our, like I said, that most of our circular debt is through these two sectors, that is gas sectors and the power sector. Around 2.3 trillion rupees is coming through or being contributed by the power sector, where about 2.4 or 2.3, rather 2.4 is coming being contributed by the power sector, and 2.3 is being contributed by the gas sector. Now I'll focus more on the power sector because it has more efforts to kind of remodel that, reform that sector, whereas gas sector, we have only two major companies, Sui Southern Gas companies in the south and in the north. And no major investments have been made in these gas companies. And the only issue is the setting of tariff and the recovering of the fixed cost. And in the about couple of years back, we faced a lot of load shedding in the gas sector and shortage of gas. So therefore, major emphasis was placed on the power sector. Now we are importing LNG, so that will be also inducted in the gas sector, and probably will be having a kind of healthy gas sector. And currently, beginning from this year, middle of this year, June, the government has decided to introduce the concept of fixed cost recovery for the gas sector also. So hopefully it will have some positive effect on the viability of the gas sector. Now, if I go through the power sector, I'll begin with this sector before 1990. As you can see, at that time, at this time of independence in 1947, our total installed capacity was 60 megawatt, and hydropower station, one hydropower station and few integrated transmission lines were there. And there was an independent company, Karachi Electric Power Company, supplying onto the Karachi area and to some parts of the Sindh. Those who might have at least know the structure or the physical location of Pakistan. Pakistan is kind of from north to south. So mostly it has a very narrow width, but on the lengthwise, from top to bottom, north to south, it has long corridor. So Karachi is right at the bottom in the south, and for that, Karachi Electric Supply Company was created, and that was before partition. Formal planning process started with the first 5-year plans. That was in 1955 to 1960, and some kind of integrated planning started in 1958 under the control of federal government. Then in like Nepal, we just depended most for the most kind of contributions. We depended on World Bank and the donor agencies. And in 1977, World Bank was involved for the construction of Tabela and Bangla Dam, and 2,500 megawatt capacity was added in 1977.
Hello, Alvi sir.
G.
Hello. Sir,
yes.
can you please just slightly lower your camera because you are only your heart. Okay, that's good, sir. That's perfect.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
I thought probably since you are more interested in my speech.
It's going on YouTube. It's going on YouTube now. That's right. Just.
Okay. All right. All right.
Thank you.
Then our fourth 5-year plan pointed to inability of WAPDA, which was created in 1958. And WAPDA was responsible for all the generation, transmission, and distribution activities in the country without K electric area. So, but in fifth year plan, fourth 5-year plan, that was in 1970 to 75, it was pointed out that WAPDA is not able to kind of do justice to all the three areas and to do something. And in mid 80s, starting with 1985, 86, we have severe breakdowns, outages, and power shortages. And at that time also, the government was not able to pay to the kind of donor agencies or other agencies. And there also we had this crisis to kind of provide the fiscal space. There was then IMF was also requested to provide some support, and that's how IMF also got involved in that. As a result, at that time, just this organogram shows you that the major sectors or major players in the sector. Like I just discussed in the previous slide also, the Water and Power Development Authority, it served all non-Karachi customers for generation, transmission, distribution, and whereas Karachi Electric Supply Company was responsible to Karachi and associated area, and it was also responsible for the three sectors. Then in 1992, a reform process was initiated, and that at that time it was decided to unbundle WAPDA into independent generation, transmission, and distribution sectors. And as a result, 3 GENCOs initially, and then 4th GENCO was added to this kind of unbundling of generation sector, and 4 GENCOs were created. And independent WAPDA Hydel department was created. That was responsible for the operation and construction and operation of the large dams and hydro facilities. One transmission company was also established, which was National Transmission and Distribution Company, and it was responsible for grid station, transmission line operation and maintenance. And at that time, 8 distribution companies were created out of the area boards which were being run by WAPDA. And these 8 distribution companies were further, one of those were further bifurcated to create another distribution companies. That was HESCO and SEPCO. Hyderabad area company was divided into 2 parts. And then another tribal area company was also added to the list. So now we have 10 distribution companies in the public sector. At that time also, a regulator in 1997, based on this 1992 reform paper, which was produced with the assistance of World Bank, reform milestones were created, and the reform areas were identified, and a regulator was also established in 1997 through an act of parliament. And mainly the mandate of NAPRA was to grant license for every entity which was involved in the generation, transmission, and distribution sectors. And separate licenses for public sector entities were granted. Another concept which was kind of introduction of competition in the country was the definition of bulk power consumer, which was not earlier defined clearly, but NAPRA Act defined that any consumer who is consuming above 1 megawatt may be called or will be called as bulk power consumer. So that has a special kind of place in the Act, as it was defined, or it was contained in the Act, that generation companies may sell to these BPCs directly. So this was the introduction of some kind of competition in the country. Then the NAPRA Act also introduced a term of special purpose transmission line, LSNC. This was also to have some kind of competition in the transmission sector. And any person who want to kind of to be involved in the transmission business may apply for a license, and they can construct transmission lines. Of course, NAPRA would would be kind of looking at the credential of that applicant, and whether they are qualified to construct those transmission lines. They have the ability and the financial ability. So as a result of that, one industrial sector, that was Fatma Energy, they constructed a special transmission line, and they obtained that license. So they are the one transmission company, and later on, another transmission license was granted in the Sindh province, where Sindh government, in collaboration with the private sector, also obtained this transmission license, and they constructed these lines. So these two lines are also being built in the have been built in the private sector. NEPRA also was responsible for setting tariffs, and all the tariffs in the generation, transmission, and distribution, the three sectors, are to be based in the cost of service basis. Then NEPRA also made a number of rules, regulations. NEPRA also announced multi-year tariff for Karachi Electric Company. Rules and regulation and codes and performance standards were developed. And similarly, multi-year tariff was also announced for KE. At the same time, NEPRA also, and these are the some of the major activities which NEPRA undertook. Upfront tariffs announced for different technologies, including for renewables. So these are some of the steps which were taken by NEPRA after its incorporation over different time frame. And I'll go over this time kind of activities in the subsequent slides. As a result of NEPRA, our model, you can say, in the country was called or based on a single buyer model, where generators, power purchasing agency, and DISCOs are the three players. NEPRA, through its transmission license, also defined a central power purchasing agency, CPPAG. So that was one of the areas which was missing before. A central power purchasing agency was created, which was to purchase power based from generators based on the demand or the overall energy forecast demand by the Planning Commission and NTDC, and it will sell to that power to distribution companies. So distribution companies, the ultimate consumer, were to purchase from CPPAG, and capacity transfer and energy transfer was kind of implemented through this mechanism. And the payments, DISCOs were paid to CPPAG, and CPPAG will in turn pay back to generators. And here, essentially, this circular debt kind of concept was initiated at that time, when we felt, or the sector felt, that CPPAG is not able to pay all the kind of money it owed to generators. So that how it kind of that circular debt kind of started to emerge. There are different reasons for that. We'll discuss those in the next slides also. But the main reason was that since NEPRA was to have a uniform tariff based on the government policy, and the government was there to based on the government's own agenda and policies, because political governments have their own agendas. So they did not want to pass on exact cost of service to consumers. And that's how this concept of subsidies and this incentives for the consumers, they kind of came into place. But the cost of service, or the true cost for buying commodities from generators, that was not materialized. And at that time, therefore, in 2001, NEPRA produced a transmission license for NTDC, and there in the transmission license, it introduced the concept of central power purchasing agencies, contract registrar, network operator, and system operator. And please note that these were the kind of concepts, those were introduced in the transmission license for NTDC. As a result, the first step was materialized. A CPPAG, a Central Power Purchasing Agency, was introduced or created, but still as part of NTDC initially. And later on, it was taken out of NTDC. And the model essentially says that the bulk power consumers, right on this side, new PPCs and bulk power consumers and other consumers. So new BPCs and bulk power consumers will be able to, or supposed to be able to, buy from generation companies directly. Like I said, in this NAPRA Act, this concept was introduced. However, distribution companies and large consumers, they would continue to buy through CPPA, through NTDC at that time, using their system, and from the generation companies. And similarly, WAPDA hydros and all the IPPs, they were kind of centered, or their relationship was established with CPPA. So all the generation companies were kind of interacting with CPPA. CPPA in turn was acting with distribution companies. However, some bulk power consumers in the system, they were able to have direct, at least they were allowed to have interaction with the generation companies. Some progress was made, but no major kind of development as far as this area is concerned. And BPCs kind of on papers, they were able to trade with the generation companies, but practically there was very little progress. Next slide is again that same kind of picture which I showed you in the previous slide. The only thing which was added through this single buyer plus model is the initial bilateral contracts. So this plus model or plus is introduced by NAPRA Act. And that was the diagram, or that was the schematic which represents the relationship or a trading arrangement at that time. CPPAG was still the main player, but from generators and distribution companies were buying, but BPCs were able to also buy from generators. At that time, this kind of this picture, or this snapshot shows the number of players. At that time, you can see that Ministry of Energy was created, which was earlier Ministry of Water and Power, and now Ministry of Water and Ministry of Energy. They were two separate ministries. Ministry of Water was responsible for overseeing the activities of WAPDA, whereas Ministry of Energy basically was responsible to oversee all the major players in the sector. Similarly, at that time, I mean, we are talking about the activities which took place between 2000 and 2017, depending on different time scale. So Alternative Energy and Development Board was created. We'll also look at in the next slide also. Then another entity was created, which was PEPCO. And that entity was basically to manage the transition from the centralized public sector to more competitive arrangements. But later on, and it was supposed to manage the three kind of sectors, subsectors: generation, distribution, and transmission. But later on, over the years, it was felt that it is becoming another kind of central body to oversee, and it proved to be counterproductive than the initial objective based on which it was created. Then Private Power Board and Infrastructure Board, PPIB, was also created, and it was to interact with the IPPs, private operators, and the initial kind of documentation and their feasibilities and kind of licensing activities, although the formal license was the NAPRA mandate, but at least it was PPIB was there to support the IPPs as a one window facilitator. On next slide, this slide is more comprehensive, and it basically discusses the four areas: the restructuring area, private sector participation, regulation, and legislation and policy. And you can see that 1992, the 1992 unbundled WAPDA decision was taken. Then in 1998 to 1999, WAPDA was unbundled. And then in 2015, CPPA-G was separated from NTDC, which was created in 2002 as a result of NAPRA kind of lessons. Private sector participation, Pakistan has been quite ambitious. You can see that through number of policies introduced, we have 1994 policies. And right at the bottom, you can see that different political governments have also been indicated. So because these governments have different concepts, because in 1991, the PMLN was in the power, and they have an agenda to kind of unbundle the sector, privatize the sector, whereas PPPB government that was more focused on the consumer welfare, you can see. So in 1991, PLMN was there. This the restructuring framework or paper was produced by PMLN government. Then in 1994, PPP government came into being. I mean, 1993, they came into being. And in 1994, they had this policy of adding this, inviting IPPs directly. I mean, they did not move to the unbundling part, and it was put on the back burner. But this 1994 policy by PPP, that was to invite the private sector, mostly thermal, because and two or three other things which also were I would like to mention those. The policy, one of those is the policy took all the currency risk. Similarly, the fuel responsibility was also put or taken by the federal government of Pakistan. So it was a very lucrative policy for the private sector, and about 5,400 megawatt was introduced, or at least they applied to Pakistan private system, and a lot of that, about 500 megawatt was added to the system. 1998, PEPCO was created, and like I said, it proved to kind of counterproductive. 2005, KESC was privatized, and at the bottom you can see that PMLN came into power, and again they took to the agenda of kind of unbundling. 1998, a military government was established in Mr. Musharraf. He came into power. He continued with this kind of reform process. And in 2008, again, PPP government came into power. So before that, KESC was privatized and PEPCO was created. NAPRA 1997 was created, and 1997 NAPRA Act and WAPDA Amendment Act. So all these activities were going on between these areas, between this timeline and between these years. After that, PPP government in the government of in 2013 also, PMLN came into power, and they also had this the new NAPRA Act was amended, and then sale of LESCO and a number of private companies those were on cards. That was scrapped for the time being, and that's how overall sector developed. And the sector in 2017, I showed you in the this slide, last slide. And if to summarize overall kind of process or progress, I have taken this slide. This is a beautiful slide from World Bank, learning from power sector reform. And it says that competition, private sector participation, regulation, and restructuring. These are the 4 areas it has identified, and which are the same areas which is the theme of our today's presentation. And you can see that private sector participation has been there from 1998 and 2000, but and restructuring also was there right all along. But competition, there was competition in the generation sector, like I said, in the through our private sector participation. It was there in the form of 1994 policies, and later on a number of policies were also added. So this slide provides you a quite comprehensive idea about how we progressed in Pakistan. And in 2018, NAPRA Act was amended because federal government wanted to have more say. NAPRA was, although NAPRA was created, but NAPRA had difficulties in aligning its objective or policies with the federal government. So federal government in 2018 decided to kind of amend this NAPRA Act. And you can see at the top that more powers for federal government. I mean, that's the key kind of takeaway from this amendment. The federal government now, earlier the rules were to be framed by NAPRA. Now, federal government said that it would develop national electricity policy and plan, and NAPRA would be obliged to follow that. Gradual cessation of licenses in generation to make it more open and competitive. Distribution business, which was earlier one business, that was network and supply business. Now it was bifurcated into 2 areas. Distribution network, market operator, trader, supplier, and system operator licensees were introduced. Basically, this the kind of components which were introduced, and these are taken, I think, from the Indian Electricity Act. Most probably. And then provincial companies, grid companies were also allowed. So that's another step towards competition, where the provinces were able to, because in the constitution, provinces were kind of able to have their own transmission and distribution and generation for use their own areas, but there was no comprehensive or clear guideline for them. NAPRA Act 2018 was provided this whole scenario, and provincial grid companies were allowed. Rules were also to be prescribed by the federal government, whereas NAPRA role was limited to regulations for its internal working, or just to kind of explanatory instruments. Similarly, the Act also specifically mentioned that there will be uniform tariff for end consumer. And that's one of the major kind of factors which hindered the kind of overall progress and introduction of more competition or private sector in the distribution and transmission sectors. Another component, another organization was introduced, that is the appellate tribunal established. So for anyone who is aggrieved of the actions or decisions or determinations of NAPRA can now go to appellate tribunal board, and that board was established to hear those. So the federal government also had on a number of occasions. Now, on this slide, I'll cover the market development history overall, how the market developed overall over subsequent years. And you can see that from 2015 to 17, there was more focus on the competitive trading bilateral market, and this slide would provide you that information. You can see that ECC, Economic Coordination Committee, kind of decided to prepare or go for competitive trading and bilateral contract market. 16-17 consultations started. Then in a special committee, including Ministry of Energy and Ministry of Finance, NAPRA, CPPA, they just started discussions and formulating those policies and proposed models. Then in 1990, in 2018, CTBCM model was submitted to NAPRA. And NAPRA in December 2019, after a number of hearings and involving public sector and all these stakeholders, including the distribution companies, transmission companies, and the bulk power consumers, industrial sector, it was approved in 2019. And after the approval, NAPRA, by NAPRA, ECC allowed about 1.5 years for the implementation or actual working or the beginning or start of that CTBCM in the field. However, it's still not there. So the progress is that although by 2021 it had to be in place practically in field, but it is still in the you can say trial basis. Number of reasons for that, we can go over those in the next slides. Then how the technical and commercial transactions would flow after the introduction of this CTBCM. This slide, I'm going to just go over that. Again, three areas: generation, transmission, distribution system, and the end consumers. And you can see the power flows from generation to the end consumers, BPCs and distribution systems. Then payments with the reverse direction. Then power purchase price, comprising of energy purchase price and capacity purchase price. Then this transmission, use of system charges and market operator fee that is added to that, and then distribution margin. And that's how the end consumers are able to, will be expected to pay all this PPP plus use of system charges plus market operating fee plus distribution margin. And the dispatch concept is NAPRA Act also defines that it will be a central dispatch. And then is a self-dispatch based for the balancing mechanism where actual contracts were to be followed. Central power purchasing role as a power purchaser, and then there is a market operator as the role of market operator. So, and the governing documents will be power purchase agreements and energy purchase agreement for central power purchasing agencies, and actual agreements are approved agreements by NAPRA for self-dispatch and settlement and balancing purposes. Contracts actual, then at the bottom you'll be able to see that the different bodies or organization are new were introduced. Those are trader, supplier, and under the NAPRA Act, and those were identified. And you are also able to see that how the relationship with bulk power consumers was expected to move forward. And you can see that generators are supposed to give to traders. Our traders are expected to get power from generators and suppliers ultimately will in turn provide to the distribution companies and bulk power consumers. So this is a schematic, and you can see that actual contract on the left side. On this side, you can see the actual contract, which is for the balancing mechanism. So balancing market energy or balancing market capacity, those were traded in this compared to CTBCM. On next slide, I'll go over their initial. So this is basically, as you can read, that CTBCM essentially means that BPC and DISCOs can only purchase directly from generators and allowed to purchase from single buyer. So CPPAG is still there because that is the legacy contracts and large hydropower projects or strategic projects like nuclear projects. CPPAG is still there and it is able to purchase from generators, and it will sell to the distribution companies supply as a supplier of the last resort. And payments, you can see it both ways to generators and to between itself overall flow. Similarly, BPC's initial bilateral contracts, they will be able to kind of provide their payments to the generators directly. So this is the concept, which is CTBCM in simple terms. Again, this slide provides further further enlargement to the further explanation to the earlier discussion we had. So you can see wholesale electricity market operator, where we have electricity generation, then we have transmission service provider, and then we have distribution companies, DISCOs, wire business, electric supplier business, 10 distribution companies, and KE, and wire business and distribution companies and supplier at the same time. So these are the main players and participants in the market. Then we just focus more now on our current system, having discussed all the kind of market structure and market blueprint. Currently, we have about 46,000 gigawatt of installed capacity. And like I discussed earlier, there were two distinct systems, CPPA system. One system is run by CPPA and the other system is run by KE. And you can see that about 42.5 gigawatt is from is being run by CPPA, where K is responsible for about 3.3 gigawatt of installed capacity. And you can also have a look at this share of hydel, about 23%, bagasse, solid waste, nuclear, solar, you can see at the bottom 1.5%, whereas wind is currently around 4% of the total installed capacity. And the rest is all thermal, which is coal-based, gas-based, or oil-based. This is the current mix. And just to give you some glimpse of the transmission and distribution sectors, we have, like I said, we have a system running from north to south according to the geography of our country. We have a 660 kV HVDC line, which was constructed about 5 years back. Then we have 500 kV AC system. Now we have 20 grid stations and capacity of about 27,000 MVA. Transmission lines, 500 kV transmission line, AC transmission lines, HVAC, about 9,000 kilometer. And then we have a HVAC system at 220 kV line. And there we have bifurcated, I have bifurcated this number of grid stations, NTDC system, 49 K11 capacity, like 220 kV capacity. Then transmission lines, about 12,000, about 436 megawatt. Then we have national grid distribution sector supply, large companies, 10. We have small companies, 2, like I said, consumers 36, and in KE we have small percentage, about 3.34 million consumers. Transmission line losses 18.3, and then in KE we have 15.27 recovery losses ratios. That's the amount recovered by distribution companies against the billed amount. So about NEPRA is also worth mentioning here that NEPRA sets a target of 100% recovery, and but the distribution companies are able to recover only 92% of that. Similarly, for KE, they are also recovering less. Similarly, for losses also, NAPRA sets its own losses, but their actual losses and the NAPRA set target losses, that element creates this circular debt, because distribution companies are not able to make or meet those target losses set by NAPRA, and their actual losses are higher than that. Then the net metering consumers, about 141,000 consumers in the CPPA system, where KE also has substantial net metering consumers. And these are the consumers which are rooftop consumers and not is not part of the overall kind of generation mix. I have not shown those. So the rooftop consumers, then they are able to provide electricity at the consumer end back to the system. So they are there in a turn helping the system to meet the demand at the load centers. And this slide essentially tells you that out of the total installed capacity, month-wise, you can see that on this month-wise capacity, the system served demand in light blue, then we have unserved energy, and then we have the installed capacity. And you will be kind of having this question that once this installed capacity, you have a higher installed capacity, but still there is a major chunk of unserved energy, unserved demand. I mean, that's due to the transmission constraints, due to the distribution constraints, and maybe you can see the losses in the distribution companies, where those distribution companies carry out load shedding, so that those uneconomical or unviable areas or feeders supplying to the consumers are not being activated or energized, and they are load shedding is carried out for most of the time or longer times compared to the other areas. After that, in 2021, we have national electricity policy. Like I said in the earlier slides, that government was there to prepare those electricity policies, and gradually, I mean, it has major objectives you can see on this slide. Basically, it essentially says that sustainability and regulation for the regulator to perform more effectively, market operator to perform as per the NAPRA kind of guidelines. Integrated generation and capacity expansion planning was to be done. Then transmission system capacity expansion was to be done. Similarly, in 2023, National Electricity Plan was also prepared or notified by the federal government. And one major kind of change it introduced in that plan was to redefine the RE, where all major hydropower sources were also added to the definition, and the targets were also revised, and 40% of total capacity was to be based on RE with the new definition, and 60% by 2030. Distributed energy resources were to be promoted against utility scale procurement. I mean, at least the concepts or the objectives were very clear. DISCOs was the supplier of the last resort. I mean, all the public sector distribution companies were to be were supposed to provide electricity to the end consumers, including the BPCs and those consumers which are not eligible. I mean, less than 1 megawatt. But they were not have the don't have the choice. But distribution company is supposed to provide them in case of any problem. Increased role of system operator has been foreseen under the plan, and a universal national electricity rule or a notice has been introduced, where 100% electrification target was set by the government. And another concept was that fixed charges were to be introduced in the tariff components, and 60% of as another target which was also set by the government, that 65% of generation will be through clean energy to meet the greenhouse gas emission targets. And this slide basically provides you about the components which we can now say that more on solar 18%, then we have bagasse still 1% and hydel 28%, and thermal is gradually reduced and wind is also improved. So these are the targets for 2030. For RE development, you can see that at the bottom on this slide, different steps which were taken. AEDB was established in 2004. Then we have by 2008, RE policy was introduced. Then 2013 to 17, NEPRA announced different tariffs. And as a result, about 788 megawatt solar wind was added, 430 megawatt solar was added, bagasse was added, and that is utility scale kind of procurement. 2018 to 20, 1236 megawatt, solar 530 megawatt, bagasse 259, and another ARE policy, alternative renewable energy policy, was introduced. And by 2022, no major change actually took place. And we can move to next slide now. And you can see that tariff, how the tariff was also kind of passed through different stages. And 2004, it was cost plus. Then in 2007, cost plus for wind IPPs. And 2004, wind IPPs, they kind of started approaching NEPRA. And then in 2010, NEPRA announced this cost plus as well as upfront tariff for wind IPPs. So there are a lot of interest in that because it was a very attractive tariff at that time. So upfront tariff for all IPPs by 2015. But as a result, you can, it was noted that since the risk element which I discussed for 1994 policy, similar risks were taken by government, where wind risk and solar risk, those were taken by the federal government. And based on that, there were a lot of, and the performance of RE projects and the tariff was high. So the government owned system or the NTDC system was to be compromised or operated at the lower levels of operations to accommodate these wind power plants, because they were guaranteed those wind risks, all the risks involved with the fuel or wind and solar. Then government decided to go for this competitive bidding. Although this competitive bidding has not taken place yet, but that on paper it is there. And the electricity policy also that calls for all the procurement in future will be based on this competitive bidding. Further to elaborate on that further in order to kind of encourage attractive renewable energy, the National Electricity Policy, that it stipulated that the projects will be mainly or mostly on the hybrid projects for RE also, because individually solar or individually wind, these projects were not able to compete with the in terms of kind of their attractiveness with the other projects. So, and similarly, their capacity factors were also on the lower side. See, the government, the National Electricity Policy, that kind of similarly required that the further procurement will be composite. So these two slides, basically two areas. One is for solar, and one is where the wind is more attractive. So these areas all over Pakistan, north to south, and these two areas are preferably to be combined in the composite factor. So where solar is attractive, it will be also looked for the wind availability, and similarly where wind products are more attractive, they will also kind of look for the possibility of adding solar to that. Now just to have last two slides I have, you can see that the transmission system has been one of the major problems for Pakistan, and I have identified in the earlier slides that although we have installed capacity and there are capacity issues, and those are the major also, but another area is the inability of the transmission system, or the constraints in the transmission system, which have led to this kind of costlier plants to be operated in the system, and not go for the least cost operation of the power plants as stipulated in the grid code. So you can see there are number of areas where 500 kV, different areas in the upper kind of load centers in the Lahore, then in the mid-country load centers, and in the kind of southern part, there the transmission systems are not able to at least transport the all the cheap power to meet the load. So these are the constraints, some at mostly at 500 kV lines have been shown here, but there are 220 kV level constraints also, which I have not shown this here. I have taken this slide from Pakistan Energy Review. I mean, a kind of body would they work on that. And the next slide is probably my main slides, last slide, but then we have a concluding slide at the end. System constraints have forced to transformation congestion and leading to reliance on number of, and so this is the 500 kV constraint, and as a result you can see these plants which are based on furnace oil, those were required to be operated. And on this side, where overloading of transformers, but as a result of that, these are the kind of expensive plants, mostly on furnace oil, those were required to be operated. So this is the 660 kV HVDC line, which I discussed. So these are the plants, and these were operated, and these plants were mostly furnace oil based, and resulting into expensive generation mix or generation cost. And this is my last slide. What are the major takeaways from our this journey or restructuring or unbundling? I have discussed this one by one. Restructuring, reasonable progress has been made. Whether it provides the solutions to the sector issues, I think no, it needs commitment by the federal government, because restructuring has been done, sector has been unbundled, but the distribution companies are still under the control of the federal government. Similarly, distribution companies in the gas sector also under the control of federal government. Any attempt to privatize those or further go to this open competitive mode, that has been resisted by the, you can say, the union, presence of union and other factors, or maybe the other players involved, distribution companies. I mean, another aspect which I would also like to mention, that competition is this, sorry, I think I have to go to. Sorry.
Yes, sir. Are we finished?
It's having some trouble. Yeah, no, it's all right. All right. Competition, negligible progress, CTBCM success. Sorry. CTBCM is mainly hinges on key decisions by the regulator and the federal government. Number of regulations are still in place. The competition, although on papers it's there, but actual competition is not present. Bulk power consumers are practically on papers, they are able to buy from generation companies, but distribution companies at the same time are they are unwilling to lose those bulk power consumers. Do you want to say something, Mr. Tola?
No, sir, no. Please go.
Okay. So these are the kind of factors which are anti-competitive. I mean, anti-competition and distribution companies and BPCs. So these factors should be considered, and a way out has to be kind of designed so that distribution companies are comfortable. And one of the major area where distribution companies have this kind of they can create bottlenecks is the wheeling charge, which is to be kind of notified by the regulator. A high wheeling charge for a generator to interact or access BPC would discourage them, and that is being kind of still practiced at the moment. A very high wheeling charge that is counterproductive for this competition. A regulatory framework. NAPRA has been created, OGRA has been created, but government commitment is needed because still we are kind of moving in the same domain. We still want to have uniform tariff throughout the country, and that is counterproductive. And similarly, most of the regulatory powers by NAPRA to interact independently have been taken by the federal government through in the form of notifying policies and creation of this appellate tribunal. So this is also hurts the independence of the regulator. So NAPRA role is at the moment is just to determination of tariffs and notifying those, which is kind of some kind of respite for the consumers. Private sector participation, reasonable in generation sector, to some extent in transmission sector, through policies, upfront tariffs, RLNG and coal, HVDC transmission line also built through a policy, special purpose transmission line allowed number act, but distribution sector, no progress in public sector except KE. The reason I can say bureaucratic inertia and maybe the practical difficulties like the presence of unions and their kind of their working or their policies are there. So, I mean, they don't want to their agitations to stop these privatizations. Grid modernization, like I explained that we had the transmission companies went for the normal or conventional kind of expansion. Similarly, distribution companies went for the conventional expansion in their grids and feeders and transmission lines. No smart grids or smart metering systems were introduced at the discos level, and that will prove to be a hindrance in the development of RE. So that's my conclusion, that overall we have kind of traveled a lot. We have passed through a journey, but at the moment we are still there. Number of issues have to be resolved, and the policies of the government have a lot to do with that. With that, I thank you, and over to Mr. Tola.
Thank you so much, sir, for your excellent presentation. You have taken us on a very comprehensive journey of Pakistan energy sector, beginning with the history of sector before 90s and moving into how Pakistan initiated the reform process in 90s. The NEPRA Act of 1997 stood out as a milestone in this transformation that you very stressed and emphasized, and that particularly facilitated towards introduction of various frameworks And you highlighted the role of CPPA, and you very clearly presented different organizations, their linkage and relationship, as well as your presentation brought an important aspect of transformation process like private sector participation and restructuring the sector itself and competition like regulation. So you nicely discussed the process of schematic and process of CTBCM, sir. So also you provided the key takeaways and the inclusion of infographics in your slide is much appreciated, sir. You nicely. So now moving to question answer session. That question, maybe I can see 4-5 questions. So it is regarding Pakistan, regarding the effectiveness of WAPDA restructuring. Mr. Author asks, to what extent have the structural reform in Pakistan power sector initiated under the 1992 WAPDA restructuring plan succeeded in achieving their intended goals?
May I respond to that, Mr. Tullu?
Yes, sir, yes.
Actually, the question is about the 1992 framework for reforms. That was the, you can say, the main document to kind of unbundle the sector and move towards corporatization and privatization. So I would say to the extent of unbundling, yes, it's we have moved on that policy framework document, but as a result of this unbundling, NAPRA has been also there as a regulator, and we have transparency in the 3 sectors. At least we can identify that the generation sector, transmission sector, and the distribution sector, what are their problems, what are their costs of service, and we are also in that process to say that we also moved from 1997 Act to further kind of regulation in the sector through kind of separating the distribution business and supply business. And unbundling further, as CPPA is now out of NTDC and further in the form of creating these supply traders and suppliers and market operator and purchaser, separating those functions. But as a kind of the overall, the objective of that 1992 document was to go for this privatization. And that I consider that that's a kind of failure of our country to move on that lines, and we're still not able to kind of have any success. And one of the key element for the to frame or go towards this unbundling in 1992 was WAPDA's inability to kind of provide to have those funds to meet the ever increasing expansion of system and transmission system and control the losses and load shedding. I mean, that areas are still unaddressed, and after maybe about 30 years, 33 years, we're still there. I mean, we add capacities, but those capacities do not have the fundamental or underlying support from the system. I mean, we don't have the expansion, the consumer base, and the tariff to kind of so that sustainable tariff, so that at least that the sector is expanded on its own. We're still dependent on government subsidies, and we're still dependent on incentives, which though are good for the consumer to some extent, but as a sector, these are very difficult to sustain that.
Thank you, sir. Sir, you may stop the presentation slide. So now Okay, Albi sir, I will come back to you for next question. Now I would like to ask Anup sir. So Mohesh Rokaya is asking he's asking about the impact of climate change, maybe on the energy security in case of Nepal. His question actually is currently Nepal is facing lots of scared disasters such as snow lake rusting, escalating rate of melting, and so on. Recently, I have witnessed the Kulekhani Dam is almost dry, which is one of the important seasonal electricity production. How it will endanger in future on the production of electricity? Anup sir. Sir, you are muted, I think.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You're audible.
Okay. Yeah, it's a very pertinent question. So, well, our system is hydro dominated, and you are very correctly presented. The climate change is directly going to impact our system. That's why in my presentation I mentioned about the type of various type of projects and various type of energy resources should be included to operate a system in a reliable way. So the one option could be go for the various type of projects. Water is our primary source of energy, so we cannot avoid using water resources, hydropower for the energy. But there are other technologies, for example, solar and battery system, but they will contribute in our system a very little. And connection with the SAARC regional grid for the recent year, connection with the Indian grid will support our reliability, and different type of hydropower projects from ROR to PROR to picking storage. These are the options we have to choose. So we cannot avoid climate change, so we have to live with it. This is my answer.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Sir, at the moment, I would like to ask another question for Anup sir. So, what Mr. Author is asking, what is the average duration of peak in megawatt for last fiscal year for Nepal, sir?
Well, it is less than 2000 megawatt.
I think, sir, is asking about average duration of peak. Maybe in the evening. He's asking maybe time duration.
Hello.
Hello,
Uh,
Anu sir.
okay.
May I repeat the question, sir?
I think the connection is missing. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Average time is less than 1 hour. So, if I am correctly understand the question, you are asking about duration of peak, right?
Duration of peak as well as in megawatts.
Well,
Maybe you already said.
it is less than less than 2000 megawatt, and the duration is less than 1 hour.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I have another question from the author. This is related to Pakistan. This question goes to Albi sir. In case of Pakistan, which model privatization or provincialization of dispose offer a more effective and constitutionally? coherent pathway for improving governance, efficiency, and service delivery. Over to you, Ali, sir.
To actually, it's a very broad kind of question, that which model is more suited to Pakistan's environment. In my opinion, actually, privatization to some extent for the distribution sector, not whole privatization, but privatization to the extent of operation and maintenance of distribution companies. That has to be the first starting point for Pakistan, where all the interface between the consumers and the company, and that is minimized. I mean, through smart metering, through kind of remote metering, SCADA. Actually, once you are able to outsource that, then your own staff and employees, their interaction is minimized. And that will also eliminate that corruption factor. Whereas private sector introduction in the generation is already there, but we need to kind of formulate such tariffs or such policies where they are incentivized. Currently, the distribution companies are the suppliers of the last resort for all the consumers. And in case all the BPCs are taken away by the generation companies, the distribution companies will be hurt a lot. And that is their sore point. And that's why they are resisting all the efforts by the government to move towards this competition and privatization concept. So either to rationalize those wheeling charges to in the favor of distribution companies also, or you can say that distribution companies are the model has to be changed where distribution companies are not acting as a supplier of the last resort. And there are other kind of companies, whosoever takes the area becomes the supplier of the last resort. So there is competition in the distribution business also, as well as in the supply business with the distribution companies. That is the first step. And transmission, I think we have already separated those transmission businesses into network business and operation business of the system. And that's the good point. But further bifurcating into the transmission company into further subsets, I would not recommend that or not support that at the moment. But market operator and purchasers and system operator, they have to be separate, in my opinion. Currently, market operator and system operator are the same, and that is kind of counterproductive, I think, because the financial impact or financial transactions are open to the system operator and the market operator both, which is not right for the system, for the sector.
Thank you, sir. There is a thank you note from Engineer Anirudra Prasad Yadav. He says, thanks for your outstanding presentation, respected Anup sir. So thank you for your compliment, Engineer Anirudra. And there is another question from author. This is related to Pakistan. Circular data impact. Ali sir, this question to you, Mr. Author says, considering Pakistan recent Rs 1.27 trillion loan agreement aimed at reducing circular debt in the power sector, to what extent can such debt finance intervention by the federal government offers sustainable long-term relief without escalating fiscal pressure or undermining structural reform?
Actually, I could not kind of comprehend the question. Can you just provide me a summary of the question, what they are asking?
Sir, he's asking that Pakistan is maybe recently has deal with 1.2 trillion loan agreement that is aimed at reducing circular debt in power sector. So his question is about the maybe impact of this debt, maybe to what extent can such debt finance intervention by the federal government offer sustainable long-term relief without escalating fiscal pressure. So effectiveness of that debt, I think, is asked.
Yeah, actually, like I said, Pakistan, although has moved from starting with unbundling to this, on papers, we have a number of reforms carried out. But the central role of the federal government has been there in one form or the other. Like I said, PEPCO was introduced earlier. Later on, federal government also retained the ownership of the public sector distribution companies. So all the policies, I mean, they have to be revised. And the tariff setting, that is one of the major factors which is counterproductive, and especially in the form that overall we have to maintain a uniform tariff over the country. So in case of any attempt to privatize these companies, whosoever buys these companies, they don't have any incentive, because they have to act as a supplier of the last resort, as well as they have to maintain this uniform tariff. So these two do not go hand in hand. Either government has to allow this differential tariff, or they have to find a way that a direct subsidy has to be a direct support has to be provided to some companies which are having very high losses, like PESCO and HESCO and SEPCO, whereas the rest of the companies like Islamabad company and this Faisalabad or GAPCO, Gujranwala company, I mean, these are good performers, but they are also suffering. LESCO to some extent and WAPCO to some extent, because these companies are having the major base. And unless the losses are rationalized for these companies are also probably we will not be able to get out of this quagmire in the form of this tariff or circular debt. And that is the major areas which contribute to this circular debt. The recovery ratios, like I presented in my slides, these are very low. And similarly, the losses, I mean, the companies are not able to meet these losses, to target losses set by this. So it has to be very practical. Either NAPRA should again go for the working out the losses and work out the exact losses, true losses, so that these companies are able to meet their minimum cost. Otherwise, in this kind of setup, and with these losses and these targets and these organizational setups, it is difficult that we can get out of this circular debt circle.
Okay, thank you. Now I would like to ask Anu sir one question from my side. Sir, you very nicely presented that Nepal has adopted its own model, and that's very good, sir. And you know, sir, that the NEA is still doing the business of generation, transmission, a great proportion. So maybe market share, Nepal NEA is dominated. Sir, however, Nepal has adopted this model, but the international organization set certain standard to determine the indicators on power sector reform. So, where you want to keep the Nepal, sir? That is Nepal power sector that is dominated by NE is fully unbundled, semi-unbundled, or what, sir? Sir, you are muted.
Okay. Well, we have to see our system in a very different way. Though we are talking about our own model of reform, but we are very initial stage of power sector reform. We have many limitations. At this stage, what we have done is we have created basic elements of power sector reform. For example, independent regulator, transmission line company, trading company, and major involvement of independent power producers. So these are the basic elements which we have already have in our system. And just unbundling of NEA in one go may directly impact the confidence of bankers and IPPs, where they are getting confidence for the investment. For example, bankers may not invest in hydropower sector if the buyer is not very financially strong. In our case, NA is 100% government-owned entity. That's why I feel bankers are ready to invest in the private sector. So this model should be continued for the year till we can generate sufficient power within the country. Once major projects get paid or all loan of bank get paid, then we can start with functional unbundling of the NEA. Apart from that, what we are going to do is entire transmission line, they are funded by donor agency, and even government loaned that portion to the NEA. In this case, for the banker's perspective, we cannot directly, drag that portion to the national grid. But what we did is, in a grid company, we have increases share of the NEA that will be transferred to the grid later on. So at this stage, what we are doing should not be disturbed. It will directly affect the confidence of bankers and IPPs, I think. And internal market is not very big. You see, we are consuming less than 400 or 465 kilowatt hour. So financially, internal market is not that mature to just jump into. This is my understanding.
Thank you, sir. Just to add, sir, earlier you said the function on bundling, but yes, it is kind of, sir, only management split within the same area, like business group between generation transmission, or they have maintained separate account or not, sir?
I cannot say right now. I think they have to file their case to Electricity Tariff Fixation Commission, Regulatory Commission. In that case, they have to separate their account. As they are not working as a independent company, but for the tariff fixation purpose, they have to segregate their cost of generation, cost of transmission, and cost of distribution to set the tariff and finalize the wheeling charge.
Okay.
We should move gradually, because the system is so small and we have to find a lot of investment even in transmission sector, even in distribution sector. In generation sector, yes, IPPs are there, but for the distribution system expansion, transmission line expansion, NEA has to contribute in that sector.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Now, There is one question from Navid. This question is for Alvi sir. Sir, question is how the take or pay agreement of RLNG can be handled to avoid a further increase of circular debt. What is your take on utilization of RLNG for domestic purpose? As the current ban on providing new gas connection has been lifted, is this a good initiative?
It's for me, right?
Yes,
For
sir.
first. Okay. Yeah, I mean, take or pay or take and pay. I mean, these are the concepts. I mean, when these policies were made, it was that time at least to debate on these issues. And there, the decision had to be taken whether we should go for take or pay or take and pay. But after those agreements are in place, it becomes difficult, really difficult, because these are agreements, and all the risks have been kind of at least they have assured, they have the assurance, the IPPs, that they are moving on these lines. Once and those agreements were done when it was forecasted by the Planning Commission and by the government or by NTDC that will be having a electricity increase of more than 5% per year. And these agreements or these plants were introduced based on their kind of utilization over the years to come. However, after this corona and overall recession in the sector, even this overall growth in the electricity sector was negative. I mean, it's negative for the last couple of years. So it's difficult to at least have these plants running at their expected capacity or forecasted capacity. At the same time, government objective to introduce RE in the system is also kind of counter measure in that respect, that at least with reference to this RLNG use. If you want to operate RE at their maximum potential, or at least induct them at their maximum numbers, then you have to either operate RLNG at the lower end of their capacity factors, or you can stop those. You have to stop those, or otherwise you have to discourage these REs. And that is the reason in Pakistan for this policy that REs are not being inducted, at least to have some kind of respite for these RNG projects. But any measure to at least have these LNG projects operating at their contract kind of plant factor is either we have to increase our electricity consumption, a lot of increase, so that these plants plus the RE plants are operated. So that's and improve the GDP and overall sectors in the country, the industrial sector especially, because these RLNG plants, they operate, they are they can provide a reasonably attractive kind of electricity supply, but at lower plant factors, they are quite expensive. So in my opinion, unless you improve your electricity consumption, unless you have policies to where this fuel, this RLNG is procured at a reasonably lower price, guaranteeing that take and pay and take or pay kind of arrangement is difficult, and that's why the government is entering into renegotiating with all these power plants to kind of change their IPPs or modify those plants. I mean, that's the only option. Otherwise, you have to have improved system consumption, more industrial sector consumption, or maybe only allocating these plants to the distribution companies which have low losses, and they can at least meet their costs. I mean, that can be at least done at this under this current framework where we have to maintain a uniform tariff in the country.
Sir, thank you, sir. Sir, we are running over the time, so I request you for your response bit short. So now there is we have few more questions. This question is from Ahmed Nabil. How the intermittency of renewable energy power plants can be curtailed, and what do you think of current merit order, and what modification in merit order can be adapted to provide perfect energy mix of Pakistan? Sir, please be very short.
Actually, it again goes to the policies. I mean, at the beginning, I mean, we just it was for RE project especially that it will be a must buy for the by the government or the off-taker to purchase all the energy by RE plants. Essentially, I mean, it puts a lot of burden, and all the risks are taken by the government, where this energy risk or wind risk is being borne by the federal government. So this is whether in the kind of overall energy mix, the merit order is there. If government has to buy, is a must buy, then there's no point in having that merit order. But if you have to prepare a merit order for the renewables, then you can have to move towards the nodal kind of systems, where your grid have different nodes, and the transmission or distribution losses are added to those nodes to have a price set to determine the kind of merit order. I mean, just at the generation and tariff to become a merit order criteria, that may not be helpful for the government in the long run. You have to have that, or otherwise you prioritize their operation and reduce the operating or capacity factors of the other plants. That's what's happening now, and the whole system is suffering because of the capacity costs which are guaranteed to them. So you have to change the whole system, whole concept, go for take and pay, and that renewable energy is also has to kind of share some responsibility.
Thank you, sir. You absolutely nailed it. I think this question is also relevant in case of Nepal. Anu sir, please can you add your opinion? Hello? Yes.
Regarding take or pay?
No, sir, no. That the intermittency of, let me read this question, sir. How the intermittency of renewable energy power plant can be curtailed? And what do you think of current merit order, and what modification in merit order can be adapted to provide perfect energy mix? So,
Okay, we have to see from which source
sir,
we are in a...
Sir, I request you to be very short, sir.
Okay. If you see, we are totally dependent in hydropower, so we don't have very much option for choosing a different source of energy. Within these source, for example, solar and hydro, we can make some sort of mix. And apart from that, we are connected to the Indian grid, so that is supporting our system. So there is, I don't see there is a major possibilities to increase other source of energy with their source. Okay, other source of energy can be included in our system.
Okay, thank you, sir. So, here the Soni Saha says the very detailed presentation. Thank you, Soni Saha. Abdus Sahama says very detailed and informative session. I belong to Senator electric, and we have extensive solution of revamping complete business model of disclose in foreign capacity. We have done lots of transformation in many utilities companies in the world. We are able to help government at policy level as well as helping them for grid modernization, economic structure. Further, it would be good if you have the presentation as well. Thank you so much, Ahmad. Samsad will be happy to collaborate you in futures. You can also propose your topics of webinar with us at info@saarcenergy.org. Thank you very much. Aniruddha says, thanks for sharing your valuable insight about Pakistan power sector. Respected Hussain Jangam, thank you for your compliment. So, Abhishek DOE Bhutan. I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to the distinguished speaker for the insightful presentation on the energy sector, restructuring and reform experience of Nepal and Pakistan, which provide valuable lesson for France's own energy sector transition. It is encouraging to learn that our recently developed national electricity policy 2025 has incorporated many of the regional learning and principles. Thank you so much, Abhishek. So this is our objective of this webinar, that you correctly give us your remarks. And as Rogas, thank you, Anup sir. A very comprehensive presentation by Jangam sir. Thank you for your valuable insight. From author, thank you so much. Abdul Samad said, you are right, Jangam sir. So thank you all participants who have given your remarks and compliment here. So now my one last question to Alvi sir. Sir, you know, sir, that you very nicely elaborated the city BCM concept, now, because the competition should start in wholesale market first to create a transparent, efficient foundation. Then retail competition should come only after wholesale become mature enough to support reliable supply and fair pricing, sir. I think so. Is there any plan for Pakistan to bring the retail competition in electricity, sir?
Actually, in Pakistan, he is right that wholesale competition should be started first, and based on the experience gained through wholesale competition, then we can move towards the retail competition. And in Pakistan, the difficulty is that number of plants have been inducted in the system through policies, and these plants have long-term contracts. And some of these plants are kind of finishing their tenure, mostly of the 1994 policy, where those were inducted pursuant to that policy. And those are nearing or have already ended. Some of those plants have ended their tenure. And those plants can be kind of considered as in the competitive market, where they can have direct kind of relationship or interaction with the bulk power consumers. But others are legacy contracts, you can say, and for such projects, either the government has to move in or assign them to different distribution companies based on their kind of the criteria the government decides, and whether it's their cost of supply or cost of generation. But the very few products are available which will be able to kind of have contracts with the bulk power consumers or traders or suppliers. But the new plants coming in the system, and those are being discouraged at the moment because of the capacity dilemma we are having. And this again kind of goes to these policies. And until we do away with these plants or these constraints, new plants will not come into the picture. And the only option for them is either to go to the provincial governments for off-grid kind of supply to the different areas, communities, And that's not only true for this electricity, but also for the energy. I mean, like the energy through biomass or energy through animal dung. So these are the areas, but as a broader kind of issue, currently I don't see any prospects except for some of the plants which have finished their term under the 1994 policy to have direct contracts or direct interaction with BPCs. The rest is off grid.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Now we are coming towards the end of the session, and thank you, guest speaker, and everyone for attending today's session. And all the presentation will be available on SAARC Energy Center website very shortly. We would love to hear from you for any suggestion and comments for further improvement, plus any suggested topics of your interest on which you want us to arrange the webinar in future. So in last minute, so our guest speaker would like to say something, maybe 1 or 2 sentences. Please, Anup sir, just your final word.
Well, it was a great experience. So SAARC Energy Center is doing well, and request you all people to continue with this initiation. It is really great help for the scholars and professionals of the region. And I would like to thank you all for inviting me and listening to me, and also would like to Alvi Sahib for their very comprehensive presentation, and Yutulaji too, and your team also. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Jaigam Alvi sir, please.
Gee, same here. I mean, I'm grateful for the SAARC Energy Center for providing me this opportunity to interact with you, the professional, and especially Anup Saab, and especially when he talked about Hilal Raza Saab. I mean, that kind of, I recalled the kind of times when he was with us to visiting to different areas, different countries, even to India probably, and Sri Lanka on a number of occasions, and to Bangladesh also. So I mean, this forum provides a great opportunity for to assemble. And after that, the comments which we had, I hope that we had them in writing also, so that we can at least be very clear about the intentions of the participants about their questions. So, but I think we both of us have tried our best to at least explain, and I hope that I was able to at least give my best, at least in explaining those questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your remarks and for your time. So, dear participant, our next webinar is scheduled on 18th September 2025, just 2 days after. So, on the topics project management consulting for renewable energy projects, where we will be covering hydro, solar, and wind. So, with me signing out, thank you again for joining us today, and looking forward to see you next time. Thank you. Bye bye.